All right, we are recording, we live. Thank you guys for joining for today's session. It's actually session number 18 already. And we gonna have the anonymous mock interviews with the hiring managers. I will introduce you our managers in a bit. Let me share my screen and I'll explain what you should expect from today's session. Um, Here we go. So first of all, I want to introduce Jeff and Nathan. Both of them are senior QA managers. Nathan is from company Singularity 6. Jeff is from company Iterable. And both are hiring managers. They are making decisions about to hire or not to hire. That is the question. And quick disclaimer that today is an educational event. It's not a job interview or we're not promising anyone to get hired. However, we had several actually hirings from our sessions, but it's not guaranteeing. Just make it clear. And Nathan and Jeff and myself, we volunteer our time. We do not represent the companies where we work. So we represent only our sole opinion and view. All right, just make it clear. And how it works, let me explain very briefly. So we're gonna have today two candidates. Each of them will be going one by one. All candidates should be prepared with two questions first. The very first question will be, tell me about yourself. And the second question will be, what did you do at your last project? If the candidate want to combine all of them, and he want to introduce himself and he want to move forward with his last project, we're not going to interrupt. That's okay. We'll just bowl. Two questions will be limiting with the 4 minutes. Uh, that is what I will be tracking. We'll try to make it brief because we have 45 minutes for each candidate, actually 30 to 45. All right. And after that, Nathan and Jeff, they will be asking follow-up questions the same way like they do at their companies, at their job, when they do interviews with the potential candidates. And the biggest difference between real and mock interviews here is that we can give the feedback about what went well and what should improve the candidate, right? Usually, guys, when you go to the interview, if you fail, you fail. Sometimes you can get the feedback, sometimes you won't get feedback. Here we'll give you the feedback, right? So we'll try to help you to prepare for the next interview so you can improve your interview skills. Okay, I think that's it. One more thing, like if you guys the very first time here and you want to participate in such a session like this, right? What you should do. So we'll post the link here. Just go to skillsjump.com and you can apply there. You have to fill out the form and that's pretty much it. And our volunteers, they will reach you out and they will invite you to our Slack channel, and then you'll be invited to our onboarding session where we just give you the processes, how to participate, and just logistics, right? We do not filtering all candidates. So if you're terrible in interview, please welcome. We're gonna help you out to improve actually your skills, right? If you think that your resume, for some reason, nobody's responding to your resume, yeah, just throw it to us. We'll give you the feedback. Sometimes it could be painful, but that's where the growth, right? The growth. So yeah, just join to us for the next interview sessions. You're welcome. And we're gonna post this session in our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And that's pretty much it. I think we can start. Nathan, Jeff, do you want to say hi to our audience and quick, like, introduce yourself, what you do, and we can start. Jeff, you want to start?
Sure. Everyone, my name is Jeff. I'm based in the Bay Area. I think you can see my background, and I currently run our quality assurance program, which is a team of automation engineers at Iterable, which is a MarkTech company. I'm happy to be here today.
Hi everyone, my name's Nathan. I'm a senior quality manager at Singularity 6. I run the QA discipline, and we make games. None you've heard of yet, but hopefully someday soon.
Great, thank you. And let's get started. We have candidate number one. Should be prepared. Candidate number one. Are you ready? Can you share your screen first of all? And you.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Can you see my screen?
We can see your screen. Awesome.
Okay.
Great. Tell me, like, if you're ready, then we can start.
Okay, hi everybody. First of all, I wanted to say thank you for this opportunity and for you taking your time. And I want to start by telling about me a little bit. I have a background in finance, and hence I work sometime at the bank. And I worked there a lot with development team and data analysts. And I was immersed in that environment a lot. And in order to better understand each other and make a better product, I had to even learn myself SQL language more. And after some time, I realized that I quite liked the IT industry and wanted to check out more. So that's why I joined the software QA tester bootcamp. And as far as my last project, it was a mobile native application. The app aims to connect consumers and brands directly, so a customer can learn about the brand by completing short experiences, tasks, for example, watching videos or solving puzzles, and that's how the consumers can get points, which later can be converted to gift cards. I was a part of the Android testing team, and as we didn't have every possible device available because of Android fragmentation issue, I worked with Android virtual devices like emulator in Android Studio using Virtual Device Manager. And also I have experience with the remote device farm, in particular Samsung Device Lab, so we could test the app on the latest Samsung devices. And to debug my application, I was using ADB commands such as ADB logcat that I would filter by application name using grep or find string depending on your environment, and in case if the app crashes, so we can have logs. And also for my project, I used Charles proxy for retrieving data to modify requests, response, and status codes. And as for my my self-learning, I've been learning automation for some time right now, using Java with Selenium WebDriver and TestNG, and developed my small framework. And I'm planning to continue learning more about it. So if you have any questions, follow-up questions, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Great, it's nice to meet you, candidate one. Excited to talk with you about quality assurance. To start with, what is the value of quality assurance in a development organization?
I think that the reason why there are so many jobs for QA and learning institutions about QA is the reason why it brings a lot of value to the company. I think a lot of projects show that if QA team is involved in an early stage of the project, there are much higher chances that the app or web application or mobile application will be released with at least amount of bugs, which obviously means a good thing. So I think that's like the main value of QA department.
Okay, great. You mentioned that early involvement is important. When should QA get involved in the development process?
In my opinion, when at sprint planning, if for example a team follows Scrum, and before beginning of the sprint, we have sprint meeting where we discuss what we're going to be put in a sprint backlog, or what features will be developed within this sprint. That's already when the QA should be involved in the process.
Okay. So what are some of the good things about that embedded QA model where QA is working side by side with developers?
I think one of the reasons why it's also important for QA to be involved as early as possible is because it really impacts the long run. So let's say if QA wasn't involved as early as possible, when we will be testing application, we will have a lot of questions to developers. So in order to fix those issues and solve the problems, we'll have to keep asking developers a lot of questions, hence meaning distract them from doing their job and just not achieving today's goals. And that's why we'll have also meetings, stand-up meetings every day where we discuss what was done yesterday, what we're going to be doing today, and if we've got any blockers that would prevent from achieving today's goal. So I think that's one of the most important reasons why QA should be involved early as possible, to prevent from be asking a lot of the questions from developers.
Okay, great. So who is accountable for quality?
Like, what do you mean? Can I ask you what I mean?
So like there's a QA team, there's a development team, hopefully they're working together.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for the quality of the product?
And I think the QA team is responsible for the quality.
Okay, so if the QA team is responsible for the quality of the product, how can QA help make the product better if they're not doing active development on the product?
Well, that's why when we develop test plans, test cases, we try to include as many possible scenarios as possible. That's because we try to. I'm not saying we try to be like users or customers, but we try to cover as many scenarios as possible. So I think that's the way for us to actually improve, not just check, but also improve quality, because sometimes we can check the application and change some user experience and make some suggestions. So I think by having a good test documentation will have help us to have the best quality of the product.
Candidate one, how's it going? Thanks for coming.
How are you? Thank
Great.
you.
So I kind of want to go along those lines then. So when you're testing, right, you mentioned all these things that you're doing, working with the developers. How do you determine what quality is then? Like what is the point where you feel like this is right versus wrong? How do you determine that?
Well, I think no matter the complexity of the project, the size of the project, it's always good to have a good developed test documentation. And it's not just reading from nowhere. There are a lot of people working at that, including business analysis. I think so I think it's. I mean, you're asking when if it's a good quality or not?
Yeah. So what is your source of truth, right? If you're in charge of quality,
yes.
At what point can you release? Like who determines what is quality?
Yeah. So I think the first source of that would be test documentation, but for example, let's say testing about mobile application, right? And you have some miscommunication with the developer, and let's say you don't have test documentation, right? So I think when it comes to Android OS application, we have test guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important to follow them. I mean, otherwise the app wouldn't be able to be released, right? Also, before guidelines, also we can look at the competitors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you have, let's say this typical situation when developer doesn't agree with you, it's not a bug, it's a feature, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's say there's no test documentation or test documentation is not well developed. We can always look at the competitors and see what's working for them, and let's make it better.
Okay. So what you're saying is, if you were to say, hey, I don't have the right test documentation and I think something's broken, I would go look at my competitor and see how their app is and if we measure up to theirs.
Yeah, let's say we have like a messenger app or whatever, and there are so many apps like that, and everybody has a login component at the upper page of the screen, but we want to make it at the bottom. I mean, I think we want to think about it twice.
Okay, cool. Nathan, back to you.
Great. Can you tell me about a time where you had to deal with unreasonable quality expectations? You mentioned that test documentation can be in an unhealthy state, or there can be other gaps. Can you talk to me about a time where you had to deal with something like that?
Actually, yes. Well, for example, at the web application project that I had, there were no test documentation, and that's why the first thing that I did is I did exploratory testing just to learn about the application, about the main components, about the goal of the application, and just to learn more about it. So that's how you go from there. You can start writing test cases, checklists, and other, like this kind of stuff.
Okay, great. So were you able to, once you had written that documentation down, what did you do with it?
Well, I developed test cases. So I wrote test cases, and also I wrote test cases and executed them, and also I wrote test cases and also checklists, and also I mean, just from that documentation, it's already a really great source and actually can lead to a lot of bugs found.
So candidate one, I kind of want to follow along. I understand that this is a boot camp, so things aren't always ideal, right?
Yes.
But knowing what you knew in this situation where you're testing a certain sprint and you're missing documentation and struggles, what have you learned that you would have applied to the next sprint over to make it better, right? Because you don't always want to be exploratory testing, right? You want to have like improvements. So what have you learned from this situation? What would you have implemented to improve, or what did you implement to improve?
Well, from that, I already learned that it's always good to have a test documentation. And I mean, that's why we want to be is involved in the development process as early as possible, because once we have acceptance criteria, so user stories, for example, we can already start writing those test cases, and that would cover not just regression testing, but the one of the first one we would do is sanity testing or smoke testing, right? So for us, I would do exactly what I said for the next sprint. Is just already start writing all of this documentation prior to testing. So by the time we actually have to test, so we have most of the scenarios covered.
Great. Do you review those test cases with the development team?
I review them with the QA team.
Okay. If you had the opportunity, would you review them with the development team?
If I did white box text and writing scripts, yes, for sure.
Okay. What about with your black box testing?
Uh-huh.
Like, if you had access, would you want the dev team to review them?
I think no. If I'm a black box testing, I don't think I would want to review them with the developers. I mean, they already have a lot of work to do. So I don't know if you don't want to see my test cases.
Okay.
I don't know if it varies from company to company, or I don't know if it's possible. Maybe you can let me know.
Nathan, can I ask one quick question before you?
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry, I noticed that you got this. I really want to understand what is your. Let's start over really quickly, and I may have missed this. What is the role of a QA tester with developers and product? What is your role? Like, if you can give me one sentence, this is what I do.
What's the role of QA, right?
Yes, like what in your mind, what is your job in this team, right?
My role is to, I mean, is well, I think we are quality assurance engineers, so we are involved in the whole process, starting from tests, from planning, maintaining, and all that stuff. So my goal is to I guess be responsible for quality assurance of the application.
Yeah. So humor me, what does quality assurance mean to you then?
Quality assurance is well, for me, I guess it's making sure our product is good enough for customers.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And throughout this process of QA, right, everything you do, it is to answer that question, right? Like, how do we make sure that building this code is best by the customer, right?
Yes.
I apologize. I know, like, I don't want to preach to you, but one of the things that I want to, and I know you're journeying into this space, so I want to make sure that you're the least I can do is set you in the right spot.
Thank you.
You absolutely need to tell the developers what to do. You should be sharing them the test cases, because your job is not to the developers to waste their time. Your job is to the customers that you're getting the best product. And if the developers don't know what's going on and what you're looking for and why you are protecting the customers, how can they build the right product?
Okay, so you're saying when writing the test cases, like when I'm a black box tester, I should be sharing the what I'm planning to do with developers?
Yes, right.
Absolutely.
The earlier they know they made a mistake, the cheaper it is to fix it. And you are guarding the product, not them.
No, yeah, I understand that, whenever the bug is found, you let the developer know, because it's early, we fix it, the cheapest is it. But in terms of like development stage and development test documentation, and like, let's say I want to do this test cases, that's when I also should be
Yeah.
okay.
It's never you're wasting time, right? It's a lot of like, there's a theology I hear that says, it's not, did I build the product right? It's also, did I build the right product? And by you sharing the test cases earlier on, you're driving forward that the developers are building the product right and the right product. There's a difference between those two.
And by sharing the testing documentation, you mean that, I share it with like so everybody can see it, or actually going through them with developers, like going through, okay.
So this actually, sorry, Nathan, I didn't mean to hijack you, but
No, not at all. This is a great topic.
What is the route between an acceptance criteria to your test? Like, where do you develop your test cases from?
From test documentation.
So where does the test documentation come from?
Well, we can have a, let's say we have a test plan, or we,
Yeah, so let's go one up. Where does the test plan come from?
from business analysis.
Sure. So you can have a business analysis or PRD, right? And this is what we want to build, right? But what we want to build to what the developers actually build from the design decision, right? You need to gate that with your test plans, and they need to understand that this is what's being validated and gated, that we cannot release if you don't build this correctly, right? So the sooner that you have this gated for them and detailed, the more likely they're going to hit it.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I get it. I have to go through this again.
No worries. No
A
worries.
framework that you could leverage is called TDD, or test-driven development.
Yeah.
And it's not the only one. There's other ones as well, but it could be something to look into in terms of understanding how to build requirements and then build software to meet those requirements. And that speaks to building your black box cases and sharing them with the developers so they know exactly what you'll be testing. And that's not the only way to develop, but that's one of the ones that you can.
Okay.
So one thing that you mentioned earlier was that the goal is to build the best product for people, and your job in QA is to help facilitate that. So how do you know when you've tested enough?
Well, we, I mean, I think it's a well-known fact that it's really difficult to have an application with like bug-free. So like, I don't know, it's not possible, right? So, but I think the moment where we should stop testing is that we have a certain percentage of bugs. So let's say this day we have less than this percent of bugs, or another day we have another small percentage of bugs. And also we have a user acceptance criteria and that stuff. So when we go through all of them, I mean, I think that's when we tested the application.
Okay, so you get a version of your software and you run your test plan, right?
Yes.
You come back with n number of bugs. They get fixed, you get another iteration of the software. At some point, you need to release, right? You don't have infinite time, you don't have infinite resources. So at what point do you feel confident as a QA engineer giving your stamp of approval on a release?
I mean, also we have to look at the bugs that we have. Let's say we don't have time to test anymore, and let's say we have bugs, and look at the severity, how actually impacts our application, right? We can have a bug that, you know, crushes the application, and obviously we cannot release that, right? But also we can have a bug where the a page that not really frequently visited is working. So I think that would be not very critical, and we still be able to release the application. So it also really depends on the severity of the bugs that we have.
Okay, that's a great thing to dive into, severity. What are your different severity thresholds when you're doing development? Or frame it another way, like if you were to build groupings for severity, what would those major groups be?
Oh, you mean like critical, serious, and minor?
Mm-hmm. Like what's the difference between those things, and how do you know where a bug fits within them?
Right. So as I said before, severity is the way that the bug will impact our application. So the minor one would be when the bug doesn't really affect the functionality of the application, and they can still function without this. And the serious one is, I mean, for me, it would be where we don't have some feature that doesn't work. And also it all depends on the application. What's the main functionality and what's the goal of the application? And the critical one, obviously, when the app is not functioning, like the customer cannot use our app and we cannot release this.
Okay, so when you have those different severity bugs,
Right.
what's your release criteria?
You mean at what kind of severity I would release a application?
So
Oh no.
when you are making an assessment of the quality of the software,
Right.
and you have some of your critical bugs, you have some serious bugs, and you have some minor bugs,
Mhm.
right? How do you know that your software is in a good enough quality to ship or not? Like, what's your razor to make that determination?
Well, I think if we have minor bugs, we can still ship the product, and maybe have them high priority for the next sprint, so developers can fix them at the beginning of the next sprint. But when it comes to serious or critical, we with that kind of severity, we cannot release the application.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Jeff.
I wanted to follow up with this line of questioning.
Right.
If I'm your boss and you are in charge of this, say, SDK that's coming out for your mobile app, if you have one serious bug, like the product doesn't work, but no one's using it, and that's the only high severity bug, would you ship?
High
Or-
severity debug.
Mhm.
I wouldn't.
Mhm.
What you said, like nobody using it, right?
Let's say there's like this one messaging app that we inside our SDK or whatever that doesn't, no one uses it. We have 0% usage. It doesn't work. Would you still ship?
I think I wouldn't. I don't know. It's a difficult question.
So this is kind of a lead off question, and let me kind of make it easier then. Is there any metrics or key performance indicators that you could use to trade off where we need to ship versus we cannot ship, in your opinion?
Oh, can we use like a risk analysis, for example?
Sure, risk analysis is a great way to do it.
Yeah, so if whether we can determine we can ship the product or not. So so after the running the risk analysis, but you said that there's 0% of using it, right? So that's already that we already run those all analysis, and you said it's 0%. So yes, I think we can ship the product because it shows that the usage of that feature is 0%. But I think we can or not.
So it's worth calling out that not all answers in QA feel good. Like, you're very often the sort of person who says, we cannot ship this product regardless of this deadline for these reasons, or we have to compromise on quality here because of these reasons. So it may not feel good to answer this question, and that still could be the right answer.
Okay.
I will second that. One of the things that we bring this up, I bring this up a lot, is because, I've had CEOs, CTOs come to me and say, we need to ship. I don't care how bad is it, right? We're going to go under if you don't ship. Your answer risk analysis is good, right? What metrics, what KPIs can you show that, what is acceptable, what is unacceptable? What makes you money? What makes us money to keep us alive versus what trade-offs we have against that bottom line, right? In certain situations, as the quality guard, it's okay to ship if you have to have high velocity, but you need to be able to explain that trade-off.
Right. Yeah, but even like, let's say we run a risk analysis and it shows 0% of that feature being used. How can we figure out the chances that the feature will be used more after we release the application?
So it's that's the balance you have to look at, right? What happens if we don't ship today? What is the cost to our business bottom line? What can we do to monitor this feature to see if we're in trouble? When's the next build coming out? Do we have time to buy time, right?
Okay.
One of the things that make a good quality engineer is not just that you're not just a tester, right? You are a program manager, you're a product manager, you're an engineer. So you need to manage all of these line items across functional teams to answer the question, is this safe or not?
Okay.
Nathan, Jeff, I think we should move forward with the feedback already. What do you guys, who want to start?
I can actually start. I do want to talk a bit about your resume. I think it's very important. First off, I don't, forgive me, hands-on experience in performing GIU. Is that meant to be GUI, or is GIU something that I'm just old and I don't know anymore?
Wait, where is it?
Your bullet point.
Fourth bullet from the bottom.
Yeah, it says hands-on experience in performing GIU. Is that meant to be GUI? GUI?
I think I made a mistake. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just want to make sure, just quick call out, right? Like you don't want to make like things like that on your resume. It stands out. The second thing is, I love the fact that you brought up that you're testing with Java on your own and that you're using it. That's a great thing to put a GitHub link on top to say, hey, here's my project, here's what I'm doing. And as a manager, I'm like, hey, I know you don't have the opportunity to per se use it, but I want to see what you've done. I can click into that, I can read your code, I can judge based off that, like, how are you doing? Are you actually trying to improve?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about it, I want you to think about is for your projects, your experience for them, right? You have the summary, which is very rich, which is talking about like, hey, I have hands-on experience doing this. I've, analyzed user requirements and did this, right? I'd rather see that in the project you did, right? I like to always say your resume should tell me, this is what I did, this is the value I got, and this is the result, right? So, I tested using, functional GUI testing, which improved our feature coverage by X%, which gave us less bugs by this %. It shows me as a manager when I'm reading your resume that you know why you did something, you know what the value was, and you know the impact.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so,
it totally makes sense.
It's rough because you're coming out of a boot camp and it's tough, right? You're trying to get the first foot in. To make your resume stand out, you really want to work that, like, that method of showing me, what you did, why you did it, the impact, and what was the impact, right? Does that make sense? So reading through your resume, really make sure that one, it's correct, right? Two, you're explaining to me what the impact of each of these things are and what they did. And three, if it doesn't make sense, like, then don't even mention it, right? Like what is an example? Actually, no, you have good things. Just expand on it is basically what I'm saying. So those are my tips for your resume. Nathan, do you have anything for the resume?
For resume specifically, if you can get onto one page, that's actually extremely valuable. Right now, it's at that awkward 1.5 or 1 inch change length. And so going to a second, you can expand the margins, you can use a smaller font to an extent, but make sure everything on here is relevant and that you're comfortable talking to it. Within skills, like I am not a technical QA manager, I am more product and process level. But if I ask you to go deep on XML, is that something you're confident about?
How deep?
So as deep as you're willing to go confidently with regarding your skills. So
Yeah.
An engineer is sitting here on your panel and they're saying, okay, so talk to me about how you use JSON to test your backend services. Like that needs to be something that you're very confident talking
Yeah.
about.
Yes.
And you maybe, and that's wonderful, but there's a lot of things that sit under your skills. And it's really important that you can talk to all of them at the same level.
Okay.
Because you don't know what will excite someone who's going to be reading your resume. And they may want to go deep on something that you may not be comfortable going deep in.
Okay.
In terms of the conversation itself, this actually speaks a lot to what Jeff was talking about with regards to impact of the work that you're doing. You stumbled a bit when we talked about what your goal is within QA and what the value that you add as a QA professional is. And it's something that's really important for you to understand because that reframes everything that you do as a QA professional. If you feel like your job is to protect the customer at the end user, then that means your work is going to be different than if it's to facilitate the creation of cleaner software, right? Like in one of those, you're like, I'm building the most robust checklist I possibly can to test all of these failure cases. The other, you're working with the team on process to help them develop faster. And it's up to you which of those things is your primary focus. They're both valuable, but they're very different jobs and they require you to work with teams in different ways. So understand what about QA excites you and what you want to do to add value to an organization.
All right.
I like to give some tips. I think that would help you as a directly you. First off, great job in coming out here. It's not easy. I wouldn't do this for fun. I don't know why people do it, but good for you, right? I mean, you're here to learn. You're here to test yourself to see, how you would do, right? And I think Nathan and I are bringing in what we're gatekeepers to our company and to this field, and we're trying to help you out. So take everything we said with, we're here to help you. My problem I see with boot camps is they're training you for a very specific role for like a big corporation with 100 QA manual testers and some automation. And it's hard. The truth is most companies that hire QA will look very different from company to company, right? There's some basic skills that you have to have, which Nathan alludes to in a lot of the questions he had, but like what they look like is very different. So I strongly recommend go do these QA conferences. You're actually a student, so you probably can get for free, right? Listen to some of these QA professionals talk, read a lot of blogs. There's a lot of, really good content out there from people sharing information about why you test, what are you looking for, how to approach exploratory testing, how to approach manual testing, how to approach automation testing. What are you trying to do, right? And, like talking to you, I feel like you returned to us a lot of information from what you've learned at school. And that may not always be, that's one very, very narrow view of how testing should be. But when you come to the real world, it's not going to be like that, right? So having more, like theory and having more like context over how things are really done and why things are done a certain way will level you up over your competitors, because you are, you have more thought about this. You have more ideation, like why are we doing it this way? What does it mean to be a QA, right? How do I design the system? Why does this process make sense versus not?
Right. So you're saying that I should be focusing on like reading about how different companies doing their QA work?
Yeah, like go ahead.
Yeah, so, sorry. Even if you just review the previous our market reviews session, you will see that from the answers, and you've learned that what you have been taught in boot camps is not always the same as in the real world. And what Jeff saying, that you need to expand your vision and view of the getting the knowledge, right? Especially you are new, you're trying to absorb as much information as possible, but obviously at the same time you need to stay focused. But you need to know like that, for example, startups, and I think Jeff and Nathan, we work at startups, they work differently. And for example, your answer like QA is not responsible. I mean, QA is one of the, who is the responsible for QA? To be honest, maybe it was at some point somewhere true in old school where, you know, everybody blamed QA, but it's not anymore. So if I can hear this type of question, it's like, whoa, 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 hold on. So yeah, just, you know, go find the blogs. Maybe Jeff, you can post something good one in our Slack channel if you, I mean, if you can, or just observe the previous sessions, like, you know, because your answers, it's you shooting in your foot basically with your answers. Um, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
No?
I
Your
know what
knowledge
you
is
mean.
very academic, and that's
Yep.
really valuable. It's
Mhm.
important to also have the practical experience. And I know if you're more junior, then you don't have that practical experience yet.
Mhm.
So finding ways to get some practical experience, whether that's signing up for, I don't know if you, what your hobbies are, and it's a competitive market. So it's using hobby time to understand some of the test methodologies is probably not the most exciting thing you could do, but it is really valuable. So
Mhm.
signing up for alphas for web software or video games on Steam, like those can be good places to practice some of your test methodologies, and hopefully they could be fun too. So you can apply the things that you're learning outside of the software QA tester bootcamp context that you know them.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, thank you, candidate number one. Wish you good luck, and yeah, just keep going. Just keep
Okay.
going,
Nice
and
to meet you. Thank you so much for your time.
you
Thank
did
you.
a great job. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, we kind of short in time. Ira, do we have candidate number two ready? Meanwhile, while we're waiting for candidate number two, just again, like if you guys want to participate in the next session, follow the meetup link. I, I assume that most of you are here from the meetup group or just Slack channel, right? And then you should be good. All right, candidate number two, I see you just joined.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Hello.
All right, candidate number two, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your last project.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I got into software testing by chance. My husband, who is a software developer, suggested that I try taking a introduction to software testing class, and I took it, and I fell in love with it. It was so interesting and fun for me to find all these bugs. We had a calculator application, and I was finding all these bugs, and and that was the beginning for me. So then I joined a large software company as a contractor, but then 3 months later, they made me full-time because I was again finding so many bugs. I was mainly doing black box testing, and also I did some API testing, but using tools that they had written for testing for the test team. Then later on, I mean, I stayed for a long time, and then they wanted all the testers to write automation. So I learned C# and I wrote some automation, but I realized that my passion and my strength were in manual testing. So I left the company because we moved, and I decided to take a break then. And when I was ready to go back to work, I decided that I wanted to ease back in. So I looked for a part-time job and doing only manual testing because this is what I like to do. So I joined a smaller company. I was part-time again. And about a year ago, I decided that I wanted to do more, and I was ready for more. So I asked to become full-time, and I became full-time. So today in that company, I'm responsible for testing 2 different web applications, but they have a lot in common in terms of testing between the 2. For example, I have to test the layout, the scrolling, look at the ads, the positioning, if they're loading. There's search in both, and then the CMS. They both have a CMS that I test. The second application, the web app that I also test has a bit more user interaction and user input. So for example, users can sign up for a membership. We have free membership, we have paid, and then they can search for and purchase services. So that's also something that I test. For both of these applications, I test on desktop and mobile using different devices and browsers. And I mainly or only do manual testing for that. And I focus a lot on how things look and feel from a user's perspective. And for both projects that I'm working on, we're currently modernizing the look of the sites. And we're also, of course, fixing the functionality. Anything that's broken or that doesn't work right, we have to fix that. So there's a lot of UI changes that I'm dealing with. And that's it.
Awesome, candidate 2. It's wonderful meeting you. Excited to chat with you. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us. I'm not sure if you saw the introductions, but I'm Nathan. I'm a QA manager at Singularity 6.
Mm-hmm.
And
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So let's jump right into it. What is the value of quality assurance in a development organization?
The value is making sure that the feature that you are releasing is actually doing what it's supposed to do and that there's value to it. So I think that just making a change for the sake of it that doesn't have any, where you don't have a valid reason to make it, also you shouldn't be making it. So that's the QA role, to make sure that not only that the quality is there, but that you have a good reason for making that change or introducing a new feature.
Okay, great. So who is accountable for quality?
In the team?
In the team or within the organization, whose responsibility is quality?
Everybody. I mean, it starts with the program manager who decides, what changes need to be made. So it's on them to have, again, like I said, a valid reason to make those changes. It's on the developers too to write quality code and to develop what they're supposed to. And then it's on the QA person to make sure that everything's working well and that it's a good user experience for the user.
Awesome. How do you build an effective culture of quality?
By making sure everybody understands the value of quality and why we have a QA team and what their role is. So I know that developers, sometimes they feel they don't like it when you tell them that what they did doesn't look good or is not working correctly, but they have to understand that, it's not personal. We're just all working together to build something that's going to be of good quality and a good experience to the user.
Okay, great. Have you worked in an embedded QA model? Are you matrixed, or do you have like a black box or a waterfall type end of the line type methodology?
No, I did both. So right now we're doing the agile methodology in my current company. Yeah.
Okay, great. So what are the strengths of agile and what are the weaknesses as a QA person?
The strengths are that you can quickly change something if you notice that it's not going to work or we're running out of time or something else came up. The weaknesses is that sometimes if something is going to take a long time, you are, how do I explain this? So you only have short sprints, like 1 or 2 weeks, depending on the company. So if something's going to take a longer time, you have to prioritize and decide, okay, now we can only do part of it, and then the next release we have to do more, and so on.
Okay, great. I'm going to pass over to Jeff, who has some additional questions.
Candidate 2, thank you for taking your time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
So walk me through your testing with your devices. Is it a device farm or do you use a virtual device farm?
No, well, okay, both. I use the Chrome developer tools sometimes to test on devices that I don't have.
Cool.
Yeah, but we also know, for example, that let's say some browsers like Chrome is what our users use the most, or the iPhones or things like that. So that's what I focus on first. And then I have some other devices that I test on, but I focus on the ones that are more important for our customers.
Cool. When you, I'm assuming you're testing an application on these devices. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a web app. Yeah.
It's a web app. So when your web app crashes or has a bug, how do you submit this to your developers? What are the things that you capture?
Well, I try to find like good reproducible steps, what I was doing, what page I was on, things like that. And then I also try to reproduce it under the in the console and see if there's any errors that I can see that I can send them.
Okay. What happens? Give me a scenario with you and a developer if they can't reproduce it. What do you normally do?
Yeah, it happens a lot. So I keep trying to find good steps. Sometimes we also, if it's on the desktop, we screen share. I try to show him.
If you receive an error, like a pop-up error, and there's an error code, what can you do to dig more deeply into that error code?
I can Google it. I take a screenshot. I send the developer what I found, what I have.
Do you know if your company uses any type of monitoring or logging systems that you can search for those logs?
No, we don't.
Okay, cool. What is, give me an example of a novel bug that you found on recently that you thought was like, oh, great catch. And what was the strategy you used to discover it?
Okay. So one of the products that I work on, like I said, is people can buy things. So we have Canadian customers and we have US customers. And then I noticed that the Canadian customers didn't realize that the prices were in US dollars. So they were complaining that, when they get their credit card statement, that the price is too high. So we decided to add, or I told the team that we need to add either add US at the end of the prices. And then I just decided to check how we are displaying those prices. So I checked with the company where we get the prices from, and I realized that we are actually, for the Canadian products, we are displaying them in US dollars when it should be in Canadian dollars. So we are overcharging the customer. Okay. So not only is the price in US, but we're also charging the same amount that's supposed to be in Canadian and US dollars. So that was a big, thing for me. I mean, nobody had noticed that before. Cool.
So do you normally run your testing off basically a test plan, or what? Walk me through how you decide on what to manual test.
So it's what's in the spec or in the user story. So whatever it says, first of all, I make sure that the spec or the story it covers everything, all the scenarios, all the all aspects of how things should behave. So for example, did they say how it should look like on mobile versus what it should look like on desktop and things like that. And then for each one of these things, I make sure that, I cover like line by line what the story or the spec says. And then I do other things like, how does it look on the page? Did it break anything else? How does it interact with other things and things like that? So is it product that writes the spec and then you take the spec and then you test it, or who writes the specs? Yes, the product manager writes the spec. Do you ever push back on their specs? Yes, all
Can
the
you
time.
walk me through what you push back on and why?
If something doesn't make sense to me, if it doesn't look right, if it's not a good experience, if it's missing anything, I ask a lot of questions and I give a lot of feedback. And I like to do that at the beginning while it's still early, instead of, when everything is done and they say, okay, here's the spec, go and test it. Then I think it's a bit late to change things. So it's easier to change things at the beginning. That's why I like to take a look early on. Even at user stories, same thing. I take a look before it's assigned to me to test, just to make sure that everything's there.
Cool. Just have one last question before I hand you off back to Nathan. Throughout your testing, experience at this current company, have you ever gotten to a point where you're like, I'm doing something over and over again, I could best automate it away? And if so, have you done any sort of like automation over it?
No. To me, yes, you can test if when you click a button that it's doing what it's supposed to do, and then you can automate that. But looking and using the product is where you find the most issues, I think.
Okay.
So a lot of things you will miss if you just automate.
But do you pair with any automation engineers, or do you basically,
no.
You're the QA person that
Yes.
is in charge of everything? Okay, cool.
We
Awesome.
have one QA person per team, yes.
Cool. All right, Nathan, all yours.
So following up on the automation conversation, when is it good to automate something versus using manual testing?
It's good to automate when it's something that if it's a feature that's not going to change a lot, then you can automate it, because if you're going to keep changing it, then it doesn't make sense to spend the time automating it, and then you need to rewrite the automation. Also for things that like simple things like, I clicked on the button, did it do what it's supposed to do? I searched for this, did it find what it's supposed to find? But like I said, manual testing is just seeing things that are happening that you wouldn't catch with automation, or noticing things that are happening that you wouldn't catch. And that's where you need, your eyes and your tester experience.
Okay. So can you give an example of a feature that you would feel very confident automating versus one that you would really want to test manually?
Yes, for example, when you scroll the page, I think that you will have to definitely use manual testing for that, because you will notice things and you will see how the page is loading, how it's behaving, if things are fast, if anything's out of place. Things you would automate. For example, going to a page or a URL, did the page load, or clicking on a button, did something happen that was supposed to happen? Clicking on a drop down, things like that.
Okay, great. And why are those examples that you mentioned good candidates for automation, like the specific technical implementation?
Because in those cases, you want to check that if you do an action, is the not the reaction, but is the end result what it's supposed? Is the end result what was supposed to happen? What you expected it to happen? Okay. So if it's something simple where I do something, this is what I'm expecting. Did it happen? Yes or no? Then I can automate. But if you need more input or more, analyzing of did this happen, then you need to do manual.
Candid too, I'm going to kind of take this a different direction. So you work with developers and you basically run their quality for them. Walk me through, if you were to say, give tips and tricks to a new QA engineer, what is like the secret to working with your development team? How do you make a successful relationship? How do you ship good quality code, in your opinion?
You have to have a good relationship with your developer, talk to them often, bring up concerns, show them that you're on their side, and we're all working together. And don't be afraid to bring up concerns. don't be afraid to fight for quality for the user. Yeah, and then be available for your developers, show them things, screen share, show them the issues, explain to them what you were doing when it happened and why you think this is important to fix.
Okay.
So what's the value that automation provides?
It saves you time from repeating the same thing over and over. Yeah.
Okay, great. So when you look at a product, a piece of software, where do you start your test coverage?
What do you mean?
So you receive your software from your developer. They say it's ready for test. Hopefully this is, since you're working in an agile method, you have the user stories and requirements. Where do you actually start your test coverage for the new piece of software you've received? What do you do first?
I read the requirements and then I make sure that everything that it says is happening is working correctly. And then I look at other things in the product to see if it affected something else, if it broke something else.
Okay. Are you familiar with golden path testing?
No.
So golden path testing is a term for validating the expected functionality of a piece of software through the expected user path. So, for a login screen, for example, you type in a username, you type in a password, you click login. There are other different types of testing that are either more exploratory or destructive testing. How do you balance those things as you're testing the software?
Okay, so you start then with the golden path. Obviously, you make sure that what it's expected to do, it's doing. But then you try other things too. Like you try, what if I don't enter a password? What if I enter a wrong password or something that is not a password, or like something that's too long, or using characters that are not accepted, or things like that.
Okay, great. So how do you balance your time across those two different areas?
You have to do both. I mean, obviously you start with the golden path, and then you have to also do the other types of testing depending on how much time you have and how important the feature is. I think the more important the feature is, or the newer it is, then you have to find all the issues first. So you will spend more time doing all these other kinds of testing.
Great, thank you.
Can anyone, this is a little bit different kind of question. So, from looking at your resume and looking at your experience, it seems like, your MO is, become the subject matter expert at the product, understanding how to test, helping your team drive forward, validating things. But as an engineer, let's say you were to come into my company, right? And you were to become, a quality leader here. How would you up-level yourself? What would you do to what skills would you add on? What would you try to improve on more to take yourself to the next level to kind of become more of like a senior QA engineer?
So I know that most companies now want testers to write automation. So I think this is what I would be doing. So going back and learning more, because it's been a while that I haven't done it.
Is there something specific about, in your opinion, that you would pick to learn? What walk me through that route? What would you do? Like, let's say I hired you and I say, hey, here's your 369 plan, or what is your 369 plan, right? How would you get to, a senior level in 6 months? What are the steps you would take?
So I would ask what your team needs and what like what you would want me to learn, what's needed in the. I mean, it depends what technology you're using.
Mhm.
So depending on that, then I would go and learn whatever is needed to write the automation for that.
Okay. Cool. All right, let's kind of take it back a bit then. In terms of your current company, your developers are building code, right? And you mentioned earlier when Nathan asked you that quality is an entire team sport. Everyone's in charge of quality. What do the developers do in terms of testing that you help them with, or they do? And how do you make sure that they are participating in the quality process?
What they do is they're supposed to, before they send me the code, to make sure that it's actually working, that it's doing what it's supposed, like basic testing.
Mhm.
Because there were there've been cases where they send me the code and then the change is not even there. They forgot to upload it, or something's crashing, or it's not working, or it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So those are basic things that they need to check.
Mhm. So besides manual testing their own code, is there anything that you expect them to do?
They can also like run what is it called, the they can write tests to make sure that they didn't break the feature before they send it to me.
So unit testing and component.
Yeah, that's the word. Sorry, I forgot. Unit testing. Yeah.
Do you do any sort of like auditing that the unit testing feature covers was run or unit covers was run?
We don't even have unit tests on this company. It's a small company. We only have one developer, one tester per feature, so one or two developers. So
cool.
And some are better than others at verifying their code before they send it. But yeah.
Do you bubble up any quality metrics to your leadership team? And if so, what kind of metrics do you bubble up?
Yes, if I'm not convinced of something that, like let's say we're trying to ship and then the developer and I are not seeing eye to eye on whether it's okay to have this bug in or not, then I ask either my manager or the product manager, or I involve somebody higher up to let them know or ask their opinion, so that it's not my decision, or I let them know that this is what we're deciding. Are you okay with it?
Okay. How do you judge the quality of your product? What do you look at? How do you determine if it's good enough or bad enough?
First of all, it's supposed to do what you're expecting it to do. And as a user, also the experience has to be acceptable, and it's supposed to do what the user is expecting it to do. So if one of those is not working correctly, then I don't think the quality is there.
So is it how many tickets that came in? Is it how many incidents? What like, is there a qualitative number that you could put onto it?
So for example, if I'm testing a change or a feature or a user story, as long as everything that is in the requirements is working correctly, then that the quality is there. But then if there's any small bugs or things that are not working fine, depending on the severity of those, then you can decide whether the change is acceptable or not, if we can ship it or not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys, Nate and Jeff, I think we should move forward with feedback. Who want to start first? Nathan?
I really appreciate your answer regarding quality being everyone's accountability. It's tough to do, and you need buy-in from a lot of different folks to make that work. But I think I truly believe it's the only sustainable way to build software in today's environment. That really set the tone for the sort of questions that I was interested in asking, because it was about facilitating quality and building a culture of quality. And you spoke really well to the specific things that you do. You got a little bit, it felt almost defensive when talking about automation, like as though it was a threat to your job or your role. And I could just have been mishearing that or hearing something that wasn't there, but your understanding of when to use it is really good. So knowing that it's a tool in your toolkit to help your team build better products is really, really important. And I think that's something that you could emphasize a bit more strongly.
Okay.
But your understanding of the way that your team builds software, your role in that, and QA's role in your studio was really, really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this, it's interesting. Talking to you, candidate too. You correct me if I'm wrong. You hit me as a subject matter expert. Like, you know your product. Like, you can close your eyes and say, "Bug, found it," which is amazing. That's probably why, you know, you have such longevity at this current company. 2016 to what now is 5 years. So it kind of brings me to the question of, you know, like, what are you looking for? Like, what do you want? Like, are you here just to see, you know, if you have room to move somewhere else? Or are you here because, you know, you're just curious, you know, how you stack up? There are always going to be small companies that need subject matter experts. And then you'd be surprised, like, there are not a lot of people that can come in there and learn the product so well and support the engineers, right? Small companies, that's kind of how it runs. But if you want to expand your career, you know, and you're thinking, man, I don't want to do, you know, automation. What's next? Can I find a better job as a manual tester? Therein lies kind of the rub, right? So I'm not going to pretend to understand what you're looking for, but I will say, you know, if someone asks me, Jeff, is the only way to stay in QA to go into automation? The answer actually isn't yes, right? I mean, there is other ways to take manual and build a great career out of it. But you need to look into, and kind of my questioning to you is in line with that, is that if you want to do QA without the engineering, you need to become more of like a technical program manager over quality, right? And that means not just testing the product and does it work or not, but you need to cross-functionally reach over to say, are we healthy as an engineering org or not, based off quality, right? What tools should my developers be doing? What tools should, you know, I be utilizing? Maybe not me building it, but me using these tools to drive forward, you know, what the right thing is, the right behavior is. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So the thing that I'm looking for is more curiosity. What's next? How do I utilize my current skill as a subject matter expert? My current, like you're solid in all the QA questions. You know how to test, right? But what's next? What's the next level? What do I do with this?
Yeah.
Right? It's not. It's you can do this forever, but I guarantee you, you know, there are billions of companies right now that are using AI to kind of put, you know, people like this, like you, kind of out of jobs, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, but there are things that you have that they can't put out. So how do you make those more stronger? How do you utilize those? How you bring value is kind of how you'll stay relevant. Now, like I said, I'm guessing at what you're wanting. I don't really know, but that's kind of what I've taken.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is exactly where my challenge is, because when somebody looks at my resume, I have a long experience doing manual testing. But when most companies nowadays, when they're looking for a manual tester, they want somebody with 1 to 2 year experience. So I think they see me as maybe overqualified, but at the same time, I'm just a manual tester still. So yeah, that's where I'm getting, yeah.
To Jeff's point, like when he asked about your KPIs or metrics that you bubbled up, like that's an area where you can level up your broader understanding and the value you add to your organization without learning those technical skills. Like you don't need to be an engineer to understand the value of code reviews or the amount of bugs that are caught prior to integration. Like those are things that you can level up without having to do that technical work.
Yeah.
I will say, so I actually, from where you are actually, I've had experience, right? I know engineers or QA, very similar to where you are, right? Very, very knowledgeable of a product, very, very good QA. By no means like you can probably beat the automation off some of my teams, right? But unfortunately, it's like it's becomes a one-trick pony, and it's very dangerous, right? Like, how do I get out of this, right? But you need to realize what makes you a great QA tester will also make you a great, QA program manager, right? And when I say program managers, well, we're shipping something. Did we ship it correctly? Are we doing the right things, right? And you just gotta expand that into like, what can I do to derive ROI? Like, what are the programs I can look at, right? What are the tooling that we can use? How do I work with vendors to bring this value, right? And by taking on more things outside of what you're comfortable with, not necessarily coding, but taking on other tasks, you'll, with the idea that, hey, I'm here because I'm ensuring quality of the product, and that's why I'm doing this, you'll start to develop other skills that make you more than just a one-dimensional tester.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I want to add something here. Jeff brought just the right point. I mean, I want just to add that your resume looks very modest compared to the first candidate. And okay, if we'll see several scenarios that you want to expand your career. Let's say you want to move from your company to another company as a QA engineer, right? So for QA engineer, they require coding, it mostly like nice to have. Still, most of the companies still doing manual testing, but it's more like API and database must be there. It's like, you probably, if you go and search for QA engineering position, you will see that all of them, they listed as a must to have or nice to have test automation experience, right? Coding experience or something like that. But still, you will end up doing manual testing like 90% of your time, but you will do like APIs, SQL, and that's what and building the environment, right? Docker right now. And even not only Docker is already will be replaced by Kubernetes and so on. So the technical skills you need definitely to expand your knowledge if you want to go this route in the QA engineering route. I'm not even talking about automation, and that's probably why you may not getting that much requests, right, from technical recruiters. Another thing, if you want to go to automation, yes, Jeff just said that, you just need to go and learn, put it in your resume and start to apply and start to go with that. But if you want to go to managerial positions, right, that maybe you want to see what you can do and just do what Jeff just said that. Yeah. But that's pretty much it. Anyway, candidate number 2, I think you'll be in a good spot. I'm glad that you are here. I'm glad that you are trying to get out of your situation where you are at right now and trying to find the ways. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And just hit me up after maybe tomorrow in the Slack. I'll try to help you out. I see that you really know what are you doing, and as Jeff said, you should be very valuable at your company, but you're stuck there.
Yeah,
I'll try to help you out as well. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, Nathan, Jeff, let's do quick summary or recap. Like what we had 2 different candidates today, right? And the first candidate was brand new, basically. And the second candidate was opposite, right? Very experienced, but looks like she got stuck in her company or in her career path. What would you do summary, like what would you recommend for both candidates, first and second, if you remember.
Yeah. You want me to go first, Nathan? I don't mind.
Up to you.
Yep, sure. So candidate one, glad that you came. I mean, it shows me that you're interested in really improving, right? So I think the biggest takeaway from me was to keep expanding, right? Learn more about the field that you're about to enter in, and like understand like how things work, and be able to at least learn the lingo and talk. Like, what are we trying to get at? Why, right? I think you have a good base from your boot camp, but you need to understand kind of really how the world works, because that's where you're trying to get into. Candidate two, you are like the old guard. I love it. I have very similar background than you. I've never won as many awards as you. I saw that in your resume. That tells me you were like the god of subject matter expert. It doesn't take much. Don't be scared. I think that's the biggest thing. Most QA right now isn't technical. It's just technical knowledge. And you have that in like waves. Like, just talking to you for 5 minutes, I'm like, this person knows like the crap out of this product, like probably knows the product better than developers do, right? So don't be afraid to just learn some of the tooling. It's not hard, right? Like they're making them easier, right? Or learn about like other skills, expand on your program, and go outside of where you're comfortable a little bit, and you'll get like your ROI from doing that will be exponentially better.
Yeah, and I echo a lot of Jeff's thoughts. To our first candidate, the opportunity to gain real world experience is what will help propel you to the next level in your career. And I know it's tough to get real world experience when you don't have real world experience. And I'm sorry, I don't have a great solution for that. But opportunities like this one are really good for you to practice your interviewing skills, understand where there are gaps in your knowledge and things you're not ready for. So keep doing things like this to continue to level those things up. For our second candidate, one of the best pieces of management advice I was ever given was that there are really 3 phases of your comfort. There's your comfort zone, your stretch zone, and your panic zone. Try not to be in your panic zone if you can avoid it, but always put yourself in that stretch zone where you're learning new skills and taking on things that are a little bit beyond your current capabilities, because ultimately that becomes your new comfort zone. And as you identify the areas you want to grow, whether it's on the technical management side of things or the automation side of things, whatever you choose to do, by putting yourself a little bit beyond what you're currently capable of, that's how you grow to achieve those goals. And the more often you can do that, the bigger that comfort zone becomes. And ultimately you can do whatever it is you're trying to do, but it takes time to get there.
Awesome. I'll just put my 2 cents. First candidate should reshape her resume. There are a lot of buzzwords and mistakes as well, but that's number one. The second candidate maybe also needs to a little bit reshape the resume to get more details, and don't be shy. You shy on your resume. That should be it. Nathan, Jeff, my last question to you guys. So are you guys hiring at this moment?
Unfortunately, I don't have open headcount, but I will next year.
Jeff, are you still hiring?
Yes, we are still hiring. So yeah.
Okay. How our participants can apply to your job? Could you please, explain?
Yeah, if you just visit our website, iterable.com, and the careers site, we are, you can check out all the careers there. We are currently hiring. We're scaling like crazy. And we just announced we are full remote and no geolocation. So that means that we pay Bay Area salaries anywhere in the USA. So definitely check us out.
Awesome. I want just to add as well that Skills Jump, I'm looking for lead software engineers with Python. If you guys know someone, please hit me back, introduce me to him, or just hit me in the Slack. Also, I'm looking for UI and UX designer. If you also know someone, please let me know. And thank you everyone for participating. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Jeff, for giving so many valuable tips today. I think today was very educational session, to be honest, which I really love it. I love it. Irina, thank you for organizing our participants, our candidates, and I wish you all good luck with everything, with for candidates with a job searching, job hunting, just keep going. You're on the right track. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Wonderful meeting y'all. Best care. Stay safe out there.
Bye-bye.